رحمن يا رحيم.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome back. It is exactly 12 after 8 o'clock, and we are going to be joined by Roshan Dadoo. She's with the South African BDS Coalition, a very important discussion, and it is Unveiling the Truth. Israeli Apartheid Week, and that is exactly what we're going to be shining the light on. And of course, systemic injustices and calls for equality and justice. Roshan Dadoo, welcome to the program. Nice to be talking with you once again. And of course, Israeli Apartheid Week, it's been 20 years in the running. Where do we sit with the situation now, very especially with what's going on, the genocide in Palestine?
Yes, I mean, as you were saying before the break, when you think about, you were describing people you've spoken to and the entire families that have been wiped out. And I think it's worth remembering that it's now nearly 4,500 people, Palestinians, who have been killed. And that is since the ICJ provisional measures were given, where Israel was instructed to stop the killing. So I think this year, out of all the years, the Israeli Apartheid Week is even more important. And in fact, this year around the world, it's turned into Israeli Apartheid Month. So for the whole month of March, we're going to be mobilizing and acting and doing everything we can to support the people in Palestine and to pressure this year in particular Israel and its supporters and call out the complicit states. And I think in South Africa, we have an even stronger duty. As you mentioned, of course, it's also going to fall within the month of Ramadan. And I think that gives an additional factor to all of us really coming out and supporting events, putting on events, whatever you're doing in your communities, do it for Palestine, raise the flag. There's already a whole program. It's really amazing. People are really acting this year, particularly around upping the pressure on the apartheid state of Israel, upping the pressure for boycotts, and particularly this year calling for sanctions, because we just can't any longer carry on as business as usual. And I think there's going to be a lot around the world of protests, disruptive protests, as we've seen even in Western countries, even in those complicit, those arming and supporting and participating in the genocide.
Roshan, does it worry you at all? We talk about complicity regarding other Western nations, and we do know that the United States and Germany and other such Western countries have been supplying arms to Israel. And now what I find very ironical is that the occupying forces won't allow much needed aid through the Rafah border crossing to the people of Gaza. Much needed aid in the form of medication, water, and food stuff. And now America is boasting about the fact that they are dropping aid to the people of Gaza. It's so ironical, is it not? And is it because of the upcoming elections in the United States that Biden has decided to go this route?
It's disgusting, but I think it shows that the pressure from the American people is working, because he feels now, as you say, with elections coming up, needs to be seen to be doing something other than simply sending weapons that we can all see are being used to commit and continue to commit genocide, now in breach of the provisional orders that were handed down by the ICJ. But yes, I agree with you. It's really it's a horrendous kind of an irony to see those aid packages being dropped when the bombs are still being dropped, funded by the very, very same state.
You've been with the BDS for a very long time, highlighting all of these issues to the global community. And thank God for the BDS Coalition and other such organizations. I guess if you guys hadn't been around, we would still have been in a slumber and just kind of accept this disconnect and this apartheid and this genocide and the type of treatment meted out to marginalized brown and black communities around the world. So, your work is very important. Please continue doing it. But let's understand what it is that Israeli Apartheid Week is going to be active, and how much more how much more pressure do you believe this week can have on the genocidal occupiers? Because it seems from the time South Africa presented its case at the ICJ, the Israelis became more relentless in their killing, more desperate in the wiping out of the Palestinian people.
Yes, I think the desperation is a sign that they're reaching the end of their capabilities as well. So I think we really need to keep the pressure up. And I think this month in South Africa, of course, we want to support the stand the government's taken in the ICJ, but we also want to increase the pressure on our government in some areas. During the month, there's going to be actions against the Olympics for kicking Israel out of the upcoming Olympics that's taking place in Paris in July and August this year. And we need to pressure SASCOC. We need to pressure our own Olympic Committee, because they've not said anything yet. And they ought to be taking the lead in calling for Israel to be booted out, as it was very easy to boot out Russia, we saw a few years ago. So there's a lot of work we need to do, and still a lot of pressure we need to put on government. I mean, when you see these videos of South Africans that are fighting in the occupation forces in complete contravention of our Regulation of Foreign Military Assistance Act, and we know that no prosecutions have been taken, no cases have still been taken up, and yet we see them circulating on our WhatsApp groups. South Africans boasting about what they are getting up to in the genocide. It's horrendous. So that's another area that we need to raise up. And I think this month we're going to see a lot of protest actions and pickets. There's going to be regular pickets in Johannesburg every Friday, protests on bridges. In Cape Town, they're going to be picking up the boycott campaign around Cape Union Mart. Every Saturday, they're going to be out leafleting shops. And I think what's important about that is when you come out, when you're not just not purchasing something, but you're actively coming out, you're standing outside shops, you're leafleting, you're talking to people, you're also educating people and spreading awareness and engaging. So we build a stronger and stronger support for Palestine in South Africa and counter the propaganda that's coming out, and it's going to come out stronger and stronger against us from the apartheid and genocidal state in the next months. So I think we have to all do everything we can. We can support the campuses where they're building apartheid walls with messagings and protests, where they're linking up with strikes that are taking place on campus. And that's another important thing, to link up with other campaigns. So we're drawing the links between struggles here, the students who are struggling against the lack of payment from NSFAS and the lack of student accommodation. Get involved, raise the Palestinian issue in those spaces. Also with campaigns around environmental rights, because we know that a genocide is also an ecocide. The way in which the bombs and the amount and tonnage of munitions has been fallen on Gaza has meant that it means that the land is going to be practically unusable. Farmland that was feeding people, was making people's lives, even though they were living in an open air prison, at least sustainable, is now completely destroyed. So I think let's link up, let's make those connections. There's going to be film screenings in the Eastern Cape. There's some film festivals. Healthcare workers for Palestine are having a whole series of seminars around the country and online. And then in Johannesburg on the 21st of March, of course, our Human Rights Day, there's always a Human Rights Festival at Constitution Hill. So please come along. There's going to be 1,000 drummers for Palestine. And we are those drummers. We have to all come along. And it's a very effective way of making a statement and a protest and sending out solidarity. There was 100 drummers for Palestine a few months ago, And that was amazing. And now at Constitution Hill on the 21st, 10 o'clock, turn up. Everyone will have a drum. Everyone will participate. And following that, there's going to be a dialogue as part of the festival. There's also a parade that's happening. So we want to see as many Palestinian flags on that the following day around the inner city of Johannesburg. There's protests planned also in Cape Town, and there's some very important Palestinian guests coming, inshallah, that will all come at different points during the month. So follow the social media. We'll keep posting as events come up, and also do your own events, however big or small. There's people in Johannesburg doing a crochet, embroidery and felting workshop. We're going to be looking using Palestinian patterns and hopefully making something that we can then use on protests in the future. So I think whatever your skills, whatever your communities are doing, let's do it for Palestine.
Okay, I want to talk to you about the situation regarding the South African soldiers or South African youngsters going to Israel and serving as IDF soldiers in that part of the world. I also want to talk about your Palestinian guests, but can we go for a quick ad break and we'll come back and talk about those issues?
Thanks.
Facebook.com/Salam Media. Send food and send kindness to those who have lost their homes and have been plunged into poverty. For those who are a meal away from starvation, a food parcel means an entire family can eat this Ramadan. That's the power of food. Donate now to Islamic Relief.
Our brothers and sisters in Palestine are enduring unimaginable hardships. Ashraful Aid teams are on the ground, delivering crucial aid to those in need. But we can't do it alone. Palestine is suffering and they need your help. Your support can make a world of difference. Visit www.ashrafulaid.org today and donate to bring hope, relief, and healing to those who are in need.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al Bayt Lodge, your true home away from home. Al Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities. Conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities, your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041 583 6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
Welcome back. We are talking with Roshan Dadoo. She's with the SABDS Coalition, and we are talking about Israeli Apartheid Week. And of course, she's outlined a whole host of actions and events that will be taking place not only this week, but it's going to be running for the entire month. Roshan, welcome back. You mentioned the South African youth that are serving in Israel as IDF soldiers. And I do know that attempts have been made to take some action. And I'm wondering, have we succeeded at all? I'm also wondering if one of the actions could be that they are deemed persona non grata and not ever be able to come back to South Africa, because their family members back here in South Africa actually boast and gloat about the fact that their sons are serving the Israeli army, trying to get rid of the Palestinian animals, as they are being referred to.
Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts on that matter?
I think they should be held accountable. I mean, we have the law, the Foreign Military Regulation of Foreign Military Assistance Act, which explicitly outlaws South Africans fighting in foreign armies. And that is exactly what they're doing. And as you say, they boast and they post on the social medias. And we're hoping that we can take new cases, as the previous cases have not succeeded. But it's really at this moment, particularly, outrageous that we're allowing this to happen, and people are coming back for holidays and saying so, and then intending to go back again when they are breaking a South African law. And you can be very sure if it was South Africans who were going to fight for the Palestinian cause, I'm sure that the law would act very swiftly in those cases. So I think, again, it's this kind of double standards, even from South Africa, even from our country, which has stood up in the International Court of Justice and called out Israeli genocidal genocide. It really makes no sense at all. And that's why I think we need to use this month to put pressure on the rest of government. We need to see some kind of government needs to support itself, actually. We need to see a sports boycott. We need to see South Africa taking the lead and saying to the Olympic Committee, kick genocidal Israel out of the Olympics, kick them out of FIFA. We need to see these prosecutions, these cases being taken seriously, and prosecutions. Otherwise, people will just keep on doing it. And we don't want to see South Africans participating in this genocide in the disgusting way that they present themselves in doing so. So I think there's a lot of pressure we still need to exert. We still don't have any cultural boycott policy. We are still trading with Israel. Let's push for a trade embargo. It's just not possible to do business as usual. With the trade with Israel for our country is small. It's not going to make a major damage to our economy. And there are other markets, and our government's always saying we're looking for new markets in the global south. So let's really push our government where it's not spoken up, where it's said nothing at all, and where it's continuing its relations with Israel, as well as pushing complicit companies, pressuring complicit companies, be they global companies like HP or whether they're local companies like Cape Union Mart. Let's keep the pressure on, because we're not there yet, even as South Africa, in showing our support. So we can't sit back and we can't think, well, we'll leave it up to the international lawyers. No, we have to really be on the case, supporting them and pressuring the rest of our government and business community.
Roshan, just before I let you go, what more can we do? How much more pressure can we put on government? I think they've done a sterling job regarding the case at the ICJ that they've taken to the ICJ. But I believe, and my thinking is that more needs to be done. More pressure needs to be exerted by our government. And I do know that the elections are around the corner and a lot of focus is on the upcoming elections in South Africa. But I still believe that the Palestinian situation is so important that we've already set a precedence with the ICJ case that South Africa has taken. What more do you believe we can do?
I do think we can still do more. And I think when we protest, we're both supporting what our government is doing in the ICJ case, as well as putting pressure on other arms of government to also support them. Because if we're still trading, if we're still not able to prosecute South Africans actually participating directly in the occupation forces as they commit a genocide, if we're still playing sports as normal, if we're still having cultural relations as normal, it doesn't make sense. If we want to support the case in the ICJ, we need to put pressure on the rest of government, and we can't leave it only to international law. That's just one tool. The other tool we have is to push for exactly boycotts, divestments, and ultimately sanctions against apartheid Israel. So I think we've got a lot of work to do, and every little event, every little gathering, every protest, whether it's a march, whether it's a film screening, every educational event, we still have a lot of work to do to mobilize more and more numbers in South Africa to educate, to inform, to counter the propaganda, amongst South African people. So I think we've got our work cut out for us, and let's use this month, which, you know, as Israeli Apartheid Month, to join with people who'll be doing exactly that around the world. There are going to be still ongoing massive protests in a number of the Western countries, including the UK, and even in some of the Arab countries that have where it's much harder to protest and mobilize. There's a lot of program of events taking place there. So I think we also need to put pressure on our trade unions to take action, to not unload Israeli ships. As we know, the ships are routing around South Africa because of the solidarity shown by the Houthis in Yemen. And in support of that, we should be calling on our unions to take action, not to offload ships of consignments from Israel, and not to deal with Israeli Zimline ships, as they have done in the past. They have blocked the boat in the past. So people in port cities, Durban, people in Cape Town, let's really try and make sure that we are acting in support of those around the world who are also showing solidarity, because that way together, if we all can do that, definitely we will help to see the end of apartheid Israel and bring about the dismantling of the settler colonial system, and for Palestinians to have the right to return and determine their own future with justice and equality for all.
My final question to you, Roshan. What I worry about, not only in South Africa, but globally, is protest fatigue. You know, we're living in an instant age, and people very easily can move on from one situation or one issue to the next. How do we upkeep the momentum, and how do we keep the Palestinian situation alive in the minds of the people?
Yes, you're absolutely right. I think the upside of social media is that we're able to see much more of what's really taking place. As people are saying, it's the first time that we've watched a genocide unfold on our telephones, on our laptops, on our screens, literally seeing, and the brave people in Gaza who are still reporting, like Bizan and people like that, citizen journalists who are showing what is really happening to people. It's a positive, but it can also lead to people feeling, you know, fatigued, that you take action and you don't see an immediate result. But I think that we have to just use this month to refocus our attention, to decide on specific actions that we know we can do. You can't do everything. One person simply can't do everything. But even if it's a small thing, even if you just start to raise up in your workplace the issue around HP, why is HP on the preferred procurement lists? Do you know what they're doing in Gaza, the role they play in sustaining the Palestinian system, the system of apartheid under which Palestinians live? Let's do one small thing during this month, and collectively, all of us and around the world. It's important to remember that people are taking action across the globe, millions and millions of people. All of us, all our small actions, our big actions count together. And I think it's putting pressure. It is putting pressure, as we said earlier, on the American regime. It's not instant. We can't get an instant fix. But it's really important that we sustain the pressure, because that is going to ultimately, there is a shift. It is becoming harder and harder for countries in the West to support the genocidal behavior of Israel. And ultimately, Israel can't survive without that support. So I think all of us collectively, we can make a difference, and we actually are making a difference, even though it might not always feel like that when you watch what's going on a daily basis, the atrocities, when you look at the numbers going up and up and up of people killed, people injured in Gaza and the West Bank, by the way. But I think it's important that we do keep up that pressure, and whatever we can do, we try to do it.
Roshan Dadoo from the South African BDS Coalition, always a pleasure talking with you. I think you guys are doing amazing work. Keep it up, and ongoing support for the Palestinian people and the work that the SA BDS Coalition does. So all the very best. Thank you once again. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
It is exactly 8:37 news and views on Salam Media. In a minute or two, we are going to be talking with Gideon Chitanga. He's a research associate at African Center for the Study of the United States at Wits University. We're going to be looking at the Zimbabwean situation.